Hi, guys. Welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. It's September 28th, 2024. Kind of a murky day here in New Jersey, but high school football will go on anyway. I'm here, of course, with my partner, Elijah Weintraub,
Hello.
who's going to go and he's got a game to call this afternoon. So we appreciate everybody joining in for our 9 o'clock show today. Um, and Eli, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Things are heating up in sports all over the place, and of course, we sponsor for our monologue. Of course, is Coriano Trucking, and we'll jump right into the monologue. And it's kind of a topic that we've talked about before. It was the nil thing in college sports, and it's becoming, like I said, more of a business, more of almost professional in the way they structure this, and guys going to get contracts. And something in particular came up this past week, and I know a lot of people have seen it. This Matthew Sluka, who's the quarterback at UNLV, and they were undefeated, and all of a sudden he decided, the obligations that UNLV made to him, as far as payments go, um, was a verbal agreement, and that's unusual. So maybe he's at fault or his parents are at fault. Everything's got to be in writing these days. You can't do anything with a handshake, right? Um, so it's changing the dynamics, like we told you before, of college sports. Um, and I'm going to cite a particular thing because this wide receiver for Alabama, Ryan Williams, 17 years old. So just think of that. He's got his entire collegiate career. And, if he gets a better offer from somebody else at Alabama, he could leave. Um, so this is really becoming something, as you and I talked about. I was fully on board with these guys getting compensated for their image and likeness on those video games and stuff, but it's transformed almost into a professional sports league. And we got to see how this plays out, because this was a big deal, that he decided to sit out because he wasn't getting compensated. And you and I talked about it last week that Tennessee is going to impose a 10% increase in tickets to cover this nil cost that they got to pay athletes. So college football is no longer an amateur sport. And you know what? I would love to hear people's comments on it, and send us an email at sports at mono at gmail.com. What's your thoughts on this, Eli?
Well, I want to say this, and I'm one of those believers. You should not be paid to play a sport in college. I'm one of those people that believes in that. Okay, the reason
Oh
why is
my.
because number one, there's other people that go to college work just as hard as those football players that are on the field, yet they don't go for free into the schools. They still got to pay
Yep.
out of pocket. They still got to get student loans. They still got to do stuff. But yeah, on top of that, they're going to school for free, and so forth, as we may claim. Plus, on top of that,
Yep.
they're getting paid to play that. That's unfair, absolutely unfair. I mean, if every other student person out there has to work their way up, so should those players. They don't deserve to get paid. And I'm one of those people that are against them getting paid. And
Yep.
look at how it's turning. It's just turning uglier
Right.
and uglier by the minute. And now we're seeing
It
other
is.
cons, not just sports and just the general world. And we could be seeing that next week as well.
Yeah, and it's not just football in college. This is basketball. This is everything. It's turning
Everything.
into a
It's
professional
a money
sports
war.
organization. So,
It's a money
and guess
war.
who
Do
ends
you
up
want
going to
money or
pay?
do you want to play? That's what's the question,
Yeah, and the fans end up having to pick up the tab because
right?
it's a lot of money these guys are making. Just
And
think of
it's
what
all
Caleb
streaming.
Williams.
That's another issue too. Streaming. Streaming is now taking over everything. On top of paying your cable bill, you're now paying for your streaming, such as Peacock, NBC, the ESPN Plus, whatever the case is.
Oh,
That's what it is. We do have a
yeah.
comment coming in from Miriam. She says, "Good morning. It's a pleasure to see you all. I hope you have a wonderful day. A big hug from DC."
Well, thank you, Miriam. She's a longtime listener, loyal listener, and we certainly do appreciate it. And Miriam, hello to you, and thanks for your loyal support. Which, by the way, Eli, you and we had a great week this week. From
Yes, we
last
did.
week's show, we're getting a lot of viewership, and word is spreading, and I'm very excited. And you bring a great flavor to this program, and you know things are only going to pick up for us. So it's great.
Love to hear it.
All right, Eli. So let's jump into some of the things that there's some hot topics. Let's first talk about Major League Baseball. And when you
Absolutely.
first talk about Major League Baseball, of course, now we're getting down to the last couple games of the season. So there's personal records that are, potentially going to be broken in the season. Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani have made, but now we're in this playoff race, and let's take a look at that, right? So we have the guys that the division winners, the Yankees clinched the American
Dodgers.
League East, the Guardians in the Central. They're one game behind the Yankees for the best record in the American League, and of course, the pesky Houston Astros came out of nowhere and got back in the race and won the division. And
Of
now we
course.
got
You know
three
how it is.
teams. We got three teams that are kind of unusual to be in the playoffs, right? We got the Tigers, the Orioles, and the Royals all
Well, the
secured.
Orioles make sense. The Royals and the Tigers, though, that's a little of a like. Hold on, wait. They just made the playoffs. That's just want to throw that out there. Not Orioles. I
Right.
kind of saw coming, but
And
yeah.
again, we talked about the celebrations. They were popping champagne because
Oh,
they made the playoffs. It drives
the
me crazy.
AFC again. Like I've said, we talked about this before. You win the championship, you deserve to celebrate. Not now. You didn't even win
I agree.
anything. You win
I
absolutely
agree.
nothing. You don't even get a dollar. Nothing.
Right. So let's look at the National League, right? The Phillies are fighting for the best record overall in baseball, even though they've been slumping a lot lately. But they got great pitching, so they'll be a team. The Dodgers, of course, and who's the Central winner this year?
It was the Phillies, the Dodgers. We also have the Brewers and the Padres.
Right, but who won that division?
Brewers won the division. It looks like they got the X. Padres have
Right.
still have the Y. They're still questionable.
So the wild card is coming down. The Padres already secured it. So there's two wild card spots left in the National League, and that's the Mets
And
and the Braves, and the
the
Diamondbacks are fighting to
right.
it. And
And I think the games, obviously, due to the Hurricane Helene, which we hope everyone is doing safe if you're in that you did get struck from that hurricane. But due to the
yep,
hurricane, they had to postpone the Atlanta game to Monday. So that will be the last game of the season in a doubleheader with the Mets and the Braves. So one of them will be playing right away the next day in the playoffs. It's just a matter of who is going to be eliminated, which of the three teams will it be the Diamondbacks, the Braves, or the Mets. Braves and Mets both sit at 87 and 71 and the Diamondbacks sit at 88 and 72. So it's going to come down to who gets the first win, who gets the second win. That's the ultimate question. And it's
yep.
really going to come down to a close battle at the end.
And when we look about that, you got it's all working out great for Major League Baseball. I mean, the season that Aaron Judge has had, and Bobby Witt, and Shohei Ohtani, and how about Chris Sale coming back from
I know.
some terrible injuries, and he's probably going to win the Cy Young in the National League. It's great
It's
to
absolutely
have
amazing.
those marquee players in the playoffs is outstanding, and it's going to be very, very exciting. And like I said, can Judge and Soto and Cole carry the
Win it.
Yankees to the World Series? That's going to be. I think they
The
have a
big question.
clearer path. The National League, it looks very competitive with the Dodgers and the Phillies. So there's no clear-cut favorite there, like there is, I think, in the American League. But I'm very excited that we're in this little playoff run coming up.
Absolutely. And some sad news, though. The Oakland A's said goodbye to the Coliseum. It was a very bitter, sad farewell moment to the Oakland because that was the last Oakland team to leave the Bay Area.
Yep,
As you know, the Golden State moved to San Francisco now,
yep.
and now Oakland A's said goodbye. And there was finally a full stadium. Their fans were picking up the dirt from the field, putting into water bottles to keepsake. The plates were
Uh-huh.
gone. It was a real sad moment to see for the Oakland
Yeah.
A's stadium and the fans. It really was a really sad, interesting moment.
And I'm going to give my thoughts on that because I always loved that stadium, and it goes back to when the Oakland A's won three consecutive World Series in 72, 73, and 74. It's a
Right.
very unique stadium. Yes, it certainly is dated. Um, if you look at the skeleton of the stadium, it certainly doesn't match up. But that's a big loss for Oakland. I remember driving by on a train going to Dublin, California, and I passed Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. And
Yeah.
yes, it is in a tough area, but that's a big loss. There's been a lot of great history in that stadium. Remember the Derek Jeter play against the Oakland A's. So the great history. And one unique thing about the stadium is the vast. It's almost incredible amount of foul space area on the field. But that is a big loss for them. And so
Yeah,
I
and
guess what
have you been
they're
there,
gonna.
like, watch the game inside the Coliseum, Jim, or
I didn't go into the game. No, I wish I did because I how I like to see different stadiums, but
yeah.
this is a long tradition. And like I said, the three straight world championships for the Oakland A's in the '70s was absolutely one of the great teams of all time. And yeah, that's a big loss. It is a
Yeah,
big
funny
loss.
enough, actually, yeah, when we went to San Francisco in 2019. We went to go see Oracle Arena because it was like towards the end of its run. Because then San Francisco was going to be hosting the Chase Center for the Warriors then. So we actually drove there to see Oracle Arena, the stadium before it went, and we did see the Coliseum, but we did not watch a game there. Sad enough. But yeah, we
Yeah,
went there.
I've been.
I did get a chance to see it before it hit the road.
Yeah, I did get a chance to go to a game at in Pac Bell Park in San
Yeah, in San
Francisco.
Francisco.
Yeah, I've been to a Dodgers game. So I always loved going to different stadiums when I had to travel for work or something like that. And that's a stadium I didn't get a chance to go to, but I always enjoyed. And when the Yankees played the A's, it was games didn't start till 9:30 at night. So if you have insomnia, you got to watch baseball. It was great.
That's awesome, right? Yeah, other news
Yep.
happening for Major League Baseball. Monday concludes the regular season, as we mentioned, with the Braves and the Mets. ABC, ESPN will get the wild card games from Tuesday to Thursday. Saturday going forward will be the rest of the playoffs, which will be available on Fox, FS1, and TBS. Charlie Blackmon from the Rockies announces his retirement from the league. So we wish him the best and congratulations to him. And finally, the Miami Marlins manager, Skip Shoemaker, told the Marlins players yesterday in the post-game meeting he will not be returning to the team next season, following its devastating record this season. But the White Sox have it worse.
Yeah. Well, one other quick note when we talk about Major League Baseball of futility. So the Chicago White Sox kind of teased us a little bit by winning 3 straight games, like maybe they weren't going to break the record of 120
And they
losses,
still did.
and they did. They did last night.
We want to
So,
congratulate them, of course, as always.
well, if you want to congratulate them, they certainly will go in baseball history posterity for sure.
Yeah, well, they will all be Hall of Famers because.
Yeah, I know. But they did break the record of the Cleveland Spiders of 1899. Most people are more familiar with the expansion first season New York Mets, who lost 120 games. But that's not a record you want to hang on your wall in your living room when people come over. But
Unless you're a rival teams fan, then you want to hang it up in your living room. Remember
you
that
got
year.
it. Exactly. So great stuff in Major League Baseball, and looking forward to the playoffs. Like I said,
Yeah.
you got to be excited if you're a Yankees fan or a Dodgers fan or a Phillies fan, because you have going to be one of those 3 teams that is going to win the World Series this year. So we'll see how
Andrew
it goes.
says, "Good morning, guys, and go St. Mary's." Well, thank you, Andrew. And I think
Now that's a St. Joe's alumni wishing you, because you're the host of this show, good luck to your team today. That's classy. And I know that we're going to move right into college football now. I know Andrew was at this game last night at the Rutgers game, which was a big win for that
big
school.
win, 21-18.
And we've talked about it, and I've kind of been a little critical of them, like maybe they don't belong in the Big Ten, and they beat a Washington team to go 4-0, which is very, very impressive. So, congratulations to Rutgers. They're 4-0. And
can you believe
like
that?
I said, they're going to have, this is what now with the Big Ten has expanded to 16 or 18 teams. There's not going to get those easy games anymore. So, yes, this was a Washington team without Michael Penix, but it's still a prominent powerhouse in college football, perennial top 15 team for many, many years. So that's a big win for them.
Absolutely, it was, but that wasn't the only big win. Obviously, the big win to start the week, but last week, how about JMU, who took over North Carolina without a problem? 70-50 was the final. What a high-scoring game that was! 120 points put on the board. JMU comes on top. Talk about the JMU Dukes at its finest level. The NCAA didn't want them last year, and now look at them run now, 70-50 against North
Yeah.
Carolina. Talk about no defense and 120 points.
Maybe no defense or just explosive offense. Yeah, but JMU is really starting to put themselves on the map too. And hey,
Absolutely.
maybe this is because of nil. They're getting players that they normally wouldn't have gotten on a normal recruiting basis. So congratulations to them. And we got a big game today. And it's tonight at 7:30, I think on ESPN. It's Alabama, Georgia.
Yes,
And when
ABC.
we look at this, yeah, ABC, I'm sorry. And we look at this rivalry, these are two of the most prominent powerhouses in college football, but Alabama has pretty much owned Georgia during the regular season, winning 8 of the last 9. And like I said, there's just, great players on both sides. And I mentioned Ryan Williams before. He's 17 years old. I can never remember that a player being 17 years old on one of the biggest franchises in college football in Alabama. So Ryan Williams, good luck. We're pulling for him. He's got quite a bright future.
Wow, it'll be a great game and absolutely a bright future ahead. Other games I wanted to look at too, Jim, is I always choose like top 3 games other than obviously the Alabama game. My top 3 games to watch out for today: Kentucky Ole Miss at 12 o'clock ABC, North Carolina Duke 4 p.m. ESPN2 because of the North Carolina battle. That's why I threw it in there. And the final one, Illinois Penn State 7:30 NBC. So those are my 3 games extra to watch out for that are on cable TV that could be good and worth watching.
Yeah, and I think there's another game that's kind of big. It's 15 versus 16. It's Notre Dame versus Louisville.
Yep.
And like I said, Notre Dame hasn't exactly been lighting the world on fire. Riley Leonard still trying to
Absolutely.
figure out, how to run the Notre Dame system, and Marcus Freeman. But that's a big game too. Big game for Notre Dame today.
It really is. It'll be a big game to watch out for.
Yeah. So we're what? This is week 5 of college football.
This is week 5 of
And
college football and week number 4 in the NFL.
oh God, I love football.
How
and that
who doesn't?
it really is outstanding. All right, so let's move on a little bit to high school football. And there's
Yep.
some very big games in high school football. And you and we talk a lot about the Northeast, and let's call it the big 3: St. Joe's, Don Bosco, Bergen Catholic.
Yep.
A lot of
Powerhouse
good
schools.
teams. Even DePaul is a good team this year. So St. Joe's plays this afternoon at 1 o'clock against St. Peter's Prep. And I think the big game is Bergen Bosco. I don't know. I think that's at Bergen Catholic. So,
I will double check
St.
that for you.
Yeah, and St. Joe's plays both Don Bosco, I think, next Friday night. And they also have Bergen Catholic coming up. So high school football. And again, these are the players that are all going to go, not all of them, obviously, but a good
Bergen
percentage of guys
Catholic
from all
is
3 of those
home versus
schools.
Don Bosco.
What's that?
They're home versus Don Bosco.
Yeah. So good
And they're
luck
going to
if you
be
want
at
to go to the game.
yeah,
Because
and they'll be home versus
the only bad thing about going to a Bergen Catholic game is there's no
is the
parking.
parking.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
The parking. I mean, and the stadium too small. It's not that big.
Right. But St. Joe's has Bergen Catholic at home, but they do play on the road against Don Bosco, who normally plays on Friday nights. So high
Yeah.
school
And
football is
they
really
also
good.
have a
And
rough schedule. I'm looking at it now. They got Paramus Catholic next week. Dalbarton, St. Joe's Montville. Both of St. Joe's and Dalbarton are away, and then home versus Seton Hall Prep. That's a rough schedule to look at.
yeah, but this is what's going on. Those 3 teams. St. Joe's just played Paramus Catholic last week and beat them handily.
Right.
And by
St.
the
Peter's
way,
played at Paramus, and they took care of.
yeah. Yep. So these are real powerhouse high school football teams, and we love watching it. And you have a game today, so give us your
Yes. So today is St. Mary's versus Pagodas. Pagodas 1-3. Gales are 3-1. Should be a light game. St. Mary should be able to take care of them. But it's right now is not the time to start celebrating. I think you just got to hold on, keep your head up high, and
yeah.
wait until the crossovers begin, because that's when football really kicks off. Right now, obviously, this is the NGIC Patriot Division. These are the little matches that you have to go through and play. You need to start playing well now and working hard now in order to play really well against those big schools when the long run comes through in just a little bit.
And remember, we're not just biased here on Northeast New Jersey football. I mean, both Don Bosco, Bergen Catholic, and other schools play basically a national schedule early in the season. They play in Ohio.
Right.
We saw that, Bergen Catholic played IMG, which is a perennial #1 high school program. So, high school football is very, very exciting, and it is homecoming at St. Joe's today.
It should be exciting.
Yep. All right, Eli, let's move on to the big boy football, right?
Yep. And let's take a look at that standings chart. And the
okay.
crown is split this week, it looks like. Both of us stand at 6-6. And Jim, you now get the crown above your head, and I still keep it for now. But we'll see if this
Okay.
week, if we'll both keep it as a tie, or one of us will keep the crown alone to itself.
All right. Well, we're going to do our picks in a couple minutes, but let's first start off with this Thursday night game. It was a great opportunity for the Giants playing a Cowboys
Well,
team, which, quite frankly, doesn't
they
look
both deserve to
very
lose.
good. Yeah. And I think the Giants actually outplayed the Cowboys, but they just can't finish the job. And
No,
that's it's kind of the wrap on Daniel Jones. He played well. He didn't lose that game for them, but he missed a
well,
couple of
yes, he
passes
did.
that could have turned
Yes,
the
he did.
tide in that game. And they Dak Prescott has never lost to the New York Giants, and it's crazy.
He's
I mean,
13 straight wins versus the Dak Prescott against the New York Giants. But let me start with this. The New York Giants cannot win a football game just on field goal kicks. If you're telling me they could put up 15 points of field goal kicks and not one single touchdown, that is not how you win the football game. They need to get
yeah,
better with that. You cannot
and
tell
there's a
me
lot.
field goal kicks is going to help save this New York Giants team to a new victory. Not to mention the flags on both sides. The flags were thrown left and right from both sides of the field. It was ridiculous seeing all those flags fly.
Oh,
That was
Eli,
a
we're seeing this week after week, just the amount of flags and
But
some
this
of
is
the
has to be the
calls.
worst week by out of all the games from last week too. This is the worst one, the Giants
I
Cowboys
know,
game.
but we're seeing it more and more every single week. There's almost a flag on every play. And again, one thing that keeps standing out to me is the amount of injuries that keep going on in this league.
Yes,
Um,
and the MetLife
I
turf
mean,
right now is already 3-0, and they still have one more game to play this Sunday with the Jets and the Broncos. And they took down Parsons, Neighbors, and Lawrence. Lawrence is now out for at least 4 weeks due to a foot sprain. But that turf is already 3 weeks, 3-0, and they still got one more game to go through tomorrow. Can you believe that?
yep, I know. And people keep pointing this out about the turf in Giant Stadium, and from they call it MetLife Stadium. I think all the NFL just needs to do, if that's really a problem, and I can't believe that it's a problem,
It
because
is.
this is the National Football League. The cost of replacing a turf, excuse me, it shouldn't be an issue. So take a look. If you want to base on the numbers, and they'll say, yes, there's more injuries in MetLife Stadium than there are in any other stadium. Well,
Which is
take the
true.
model and pull up the numbers and say, which field has the least amount of injuries, or things that cause
Go through.
injuries on, and a lot of people blame the field. Then replace the field that's in MetLife Stadium with the field that they have at those other stadiums where injuries aren't as prevalent. It's very simple, and it's for the health of these players. But if it really is something to do with that turf, it has to be addressed. Period.
Well, it has to be addressed, and I absolutely agree with that, because the fact that is that you took down Aaron Rodgers week one already on the first week of the game. The amount of injuries last year was ridiculous, and now you're already 3-0 in week three of week four of NFL week four season.
Yeah.
that turf needs to be replaced. If you're telling me it's okay to do it for other stadiums that have better turf than MetLife, that's ridiculous. And I absolutely think it's a turf. They need to replace it 100%.
Yeah.
And also,
And
the back to the Giants again. You're telling me that for 5 seconds into the game versus the Browns last week, a fumble, Cleveland gets a touchdown, yet the Giants still win that game. How is that possible? Is that Cleveland that bad of a team that the Giants were
yes.
able to win the game even after making that mistake? Because that was a joke. I couldn't believe what the Cleveland Browns did, considering the amount of opportunities that they had to win that game.
And the answer to your question is yes, because Deshaun Watson is not the same player he was when he was with the Texans. Not the same player at all. And they're on the hook for paying him. So they're going to have to make a decision because they're not going to win with him. He's not that good anymore. And
Right.
it's a big story for sure. But, a couple other standout performances we look at was, how about, early in the season? I know it's early, but guys like Jaden Daniels, in
Absolutely.
Washington looks terrific. He could be this year's CJ Stroud, right?
Yeah.
There's all the other quarterbacks that were picked early, Drake May, and
They're all seeming not to work out.
yeah, well, they're not actually starting the McCarthy's and
Right. But if
Penix
you
and
look at
all these
Jaden
guys.
Daniels, 91.3% of his passes, it was a new record for a rookie. They defeated the Bengals 38-33. By the way, Bengals offensive tackle Trent Brown out for the season after last week's game.
Oh,
But I want to start with this though. Absolutely amazing what the Commanders have done, and they also have a tough challenge this weekend. They take on Arizona this weekend. That ain't going to be easy. I know you're saying, oh well, both these teams stink. It should be one of them is definitely gonna pull them out. No, you can't say that because Arizona's actually winning football games. So is Washington. In reality, one of these teams after this week will be the front runner to potentially getting a playoff spot and potentially hoping to win their division. Maybe not Arizona, but maybe Washington. Considering the fact that Dallas played horrible, even though they won the game on Thursday night, the Giants are horrible, even though they did beat the Browns last week. And then you have Philadelphia just standing in the loop, ready to play Tampa Bay this weekend.
yeah. Well, a couple of things stand out. Is right now the Buffalo Bills look awesome, and Josh Allen. I've always been in his camp, and he's probably right now I would say the second best quarterback in the NFL. And
Well,
he's go ahead.
here's where I'm going to go ahead and pause the line right here. They played the Jacksonville Jaguars last week, and the final score was 47-10. If the Buffalo Bills kept it close and won a football game, then I would say the Buffalo Bills are for real. But you cannot gonna say that Josh Allen is gonna be the number one quarterback or the top quarterback because they play Jacksonville. If they can somehow beat Baltimore tomorrow on Sunday Night Football or keep it close, I would say absolutely that he is going to be the top quarterback. But looking at how the game is heading to tomorrow, and we're not picking this game, by the way, for the week, but I have the Ravens winning 26-24 for tomorrow's game. I think the Ravens are going to win against Buffalo. And looking at Buffalo's record and looking at how they played Jacksonville really well. But I don't think that they're a team that can go into Baltimore and win that game. But if they can, absolutely, I would say and agree with you, Jim, that he is worth it. But right now, I think it's too early, and we cannot say yes that he is the top quarterback because again, they just played Jacksonville last week.
Well, and the only reason I'm saying that is because he's maturing. He's not turning the ball over like he used to. And Buffalo had a lot of injuries. Excuse me, a lot of injuries and a lot of like I said, the controversy with getting rid of Stephon Diggs, but they still continue to win. And you're right, that is a big game, but I'm not a big fan of Kyler Murray, so I don't like Arizona. I don't put them up in the elite, even though they got Marvin Harrison. But here's the other big story, I think, is Cincinnati. And now you just mentioned that they just lost one of their starting offensive linemen, and they're
Yes.
0-3. And I said Joe Burrow, I think, is a great quarterback. He has a burning desire to win, but this has been very unusual for them to start. But I love that Joe Burrow says, "Okay, we're 0-3, but we're still in the mix, and we're going to win, and we're going to see about that." That's
But could they go 0-4? That's the big question because they play Carolina this weekend. And may I remind everybody, Carolina took care of the Raiders like that shocked everybody. 36-22 is the final. Bryce Young proven to be the biggest bust right now in the NFL, and going to show that Andy Dalton looked for real. And if they can go into tomorrow, home versus Cincinnati, and get a victory, this will be a huge moment in Carolina and a big moment to question in Cincinnati. That is what we have to look at. We're going to be picking that game in just a little bit, but just watch out for that. If Carolina can win and beat the Cincinnati Bengals, question has to come up with Cincinnati. What are you doing and what's going on? Because you just lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, one of the best teams, and you're now losing to the Carolina Panthers. If they were to lose tomorrow, and that is considered one of the worst teams tomorrow, that is
And
ultimately the biggest question. And by the way, Panthers wide receiver Adam Thielen, with the hamstring, has gone into injured reserve, so he will not be playing.
right. So Thielen, that's a big loss for them. But yeah, I mean, I don't think Carolina's for real, and I don't think anybody expected Jacksonville to be as bad as they look right now by getting rolled
Right.
out of their building, and rolled out of Buffalo. And Trevor Lawrence, you got to wonder, is Trevor Lawrence that elite quarterback that, I mean, we know everyone's getting paid. Prescott just got paid, and everybody's making $60 million, and they just signed Trevor Lawrence a year or two ago to a big contract. I don't know that he's going to be that legitimate quarterback, the number one overall pick a few years back. But yeah, the Jaguars sure look like a terrible team,
They look like
even though
questionable team.
yeah, and they probably spent the most money in the off season on free agents and so forth, and that's not panning out. That could look.
No, it ain't.
Doug Peterson should be worried about his job. I'll tell you that.
I would too, because I mean, if you're telling me 47-10 is acceptable for you, that's not acceptable at all. And now they'll play Houston Texans, which that could be a good game this week. They take on Houston, and remember, look at Houston last week, 34-7. They lost to Minnesota, only put up 7 points. So now you got to question yourself, if they can somehow beat Houston tomorrow, is that a good opportunity for them? Are they really in the driver's seat? What's going
Yeah,
on here? Like
we'll see.
that's what we have to question. Tomorrow will be an epic game to watch out for. And one other game I want to take note of that was really a big one. Two big games I want to look at from last week. Dolphins really looked horrible against Seattle, 24-3 with the final. Seattle looking to be for real, 3-0 so far. I mean, without Tua, it looks like Miami can't do much, but we'll see if they can take care of business tomorrow on Monday night versus Tennessee. And also, let's look at the Ravens Cowboys game. The Cowboys almost came back in that game and almost won. 20-25 was the final. The Ravens took the victory there. But if you're telling me that the Dallas Cowboys came back in that game, is kind of sad. And the fact that they were losing is also sad. But we talked about
Yeah.
Dallas enough. But big shock there for the Ravens that the defense couldn't hold up and almost gave the game away towards the end.
Yeah, and before we get into our picks, there's something that I've had a conversation with a bunch of young guys that loyal listeners, by the way, Derek and Frankie, um, about this Christian McCaffrey situation in San Francisco,
Right.
and whether or not they withheld information that this injury was more serious than originally thought, and you know how much I hate the sports gambling thing, but that absolutely influences point spreads and so forth. And it went from he may miss the opening game to now he's going to miss 8 weeks and potentially with a strained Achilles. That's he may miss the entire season. So that should probably cost. I wonder if the NFL is going to go in and say, you know, you're going to get fined or it's going to cost you a draft pick for not presenting that Christian McCaffrey, who's basically the best player on your team, is way more injured than you guys let people know. And of course, it affects fantasy teams and so forth. That
Absolutely. Everything.
people who, yeah, it's
The thing is, these days, I think that's one of their less worries. I think their worries is about gambling and everything else. I don't think that's a big worry, but I do believe, yeah, Christian McCaffrey is injured, and don't expect him to come back. I don't think he's going to come back anytime soon, and we'll watch
no,
out for
not
him.
with
I
an
think.
Achilles. Yeah, no, we've seen this. One of my loyal listeners, Tom Pugh from Kansas City, he sent me a picture. He pulled his Achilles. He's a bike rider, and it's a real serious
Wow.
thing. He's got a cast up to his knee, and so
Hope he's all right.
to be an NFL player and come back from it is tough enough. But you know, the Achilles is becoming more and more prevalent an injury in the National Football League. And it really wasn't that. I keep thinking back to the 70s and the 80s, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Oakland Raiders. Nobody got hurt. Nobody missed games. It was unbelievable what's happening in today's football game. People could say they're bigger, faster. No, they're not bigger and faster than they were. The Pittsburgh Steelers of the 70s and the 80s. I mean, these guys, this was how many guys on the Pittsburgh's Super Bowl teams? Like 6 or 7 of them are in the Hall of Fame, and they played every week. And I cite Jack Lambert, and I know our sponsor, Guy Coriano, is a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So, it's just so wide open right now, but there's so many intangibles that affect the outcome of the NFL and the games that play. And that's what makes it wide open, because you just never know.
You never know how it's going to play out. It's true.
Yep. So let's go back and let's do our
Make some picks.
So last week I was 3-1. Eli was 1-3, which gets me back.
And now we're 6-6 total.
Half of the crown. So okay, Eli, I got 3 games. I'll pick the 3 games, and of course we have a bonus game, right? So 3 games in no particular order for any particular reason. But I got Minnesota at Green Bay. Now, this is very interesting because you're seeing Minnesota and Sam Darnold are playing like, they're a real team to be reckoned with. And I don't think anybody expected it at this level. But when you have a quarterback that's playing well, and you have Justin Jefferson as one of the best wide receivers in the game, and Brian Flores came over and that took over the defense, brought a couple guys from Miami with him. So they're a real tough team, and they're playing Green Bay. And Green Bay, I know, as we know, is Jordan Love. That's his team. He's been hurt. Whether he's going to play or not is going to impact it. I'm assuming that he is going to play. So I'm going to take Green Bay at home to knock off Minnesota and get them back in some sort of sense of normalcy. So I'm going to take the Packers. That should make one of our loyal listeners, Abe, very happy to hear. Second game, and you mentioned a little bit about it before, Cincinnati goes to Carolina. And, listen, I've seen this Andy Dalton thing for 15 years now. He's a good backup, but not a starting quarterback that, not a franchise quarterback. So the adjustment from Bryce Young to Andy Dalton, to me, is not a surprise. But consistently, can he maintain this? No, because Carolina is still a weak team. And you mentioned Cincinnati suffering from some injuries, but Joe Burrow's healthy, Jamar Chase is healthy. So I look for them to bounce back, and I'm going to take them against Carolina on the road. And third game, Cleveland, and we brought up this before, Cleveland to me doesn't look like a team. I know they're missing Luke Whippler, one of our former guests.
That's why.
I wish he was healthy. Las Vegas is a team I can't figure out. Is it Minshew? Is it O'Donnell? Whatever. But the year Brock Bowers is having is impressive for them. So I'm going to take Las Vegas to beat Cleveland because I don't think much of Deshaun Watson. So for me, that's an easy pick. So those are my 3 picks. And then we go to the bonus. And the bonus game is your Seattle Seahawks going to Detroit. And this is going to be a big test for your Seahawks because
it will be.
Detroit is a legitimate team. They got a solid team. And I'm going to take Detroit over your Seahawks because I don't think your Seahawks are as good as their record indicates.
Okay. Well, all right. Let's get to the picks. I'm going to start off with the Bengals at the Panthers, 1 p.m. on Fox. Listen, the Bengals have been really struggling, and the Panthers look like they're going to start Andy Dalton once more again. And I think the Panthers are for real. The Bengals are not. I'm going to take the Carolina Panthers in a big upset, 32-18.
That'll move the crown if you get that one right. Yep.
Vikings Packers, 1 p.m. CBS. Vikings, they've been on a hot streak, but the Packers look like they can do it, whether or not Jordan Love plays or not. The Packers got it. Packers win 24-21. Comment coming in before I get to the next one. Paul Louise says, Paul from Rockville Center, first-time caller, part-time listener.
Yeah, well, Paul Lawless, by the way, he's an attorney from Rockville Center, one of my fellow classmates from Niagara University. And Paul, thank you for listening.
Yeah,
You will be a full-time listener, but I appreciate you joining in and throwing a comment on the show. And
appreciate
by
it.
the way, he's one of the funniest guys that I've ever known. So, by the
All
way,
righty. Here are my other two picks. We have Browns Raiders 425 CBS. If the Browns couldn't win against the New York Giants when having so many opportunities, the Raiders get them the full swing. But yet again, the Raiders also lost to the Panthers. But in
yeah,
this case, the Raiders are home. Browns aren't looking too good. I'm taking the Raiders to win in a very low scoring 18-15 game. The final
okay,
game, Seattle is in Detroit. Seattle beat Detroit last year in overtime, and that was a big game. And Seattle's already 3-0, and they're going to go 4-0. For my upset pick of the week, give me Seattle 26-23 and another high scoring, close game. Seattle, Raiders, Packers, Panthers. We disagree on two this week, Jim.
all right. Well, that's going to move the needle for sure in
All
our
righty.
picks, right?
Absolutely, it will.
So I guess you are a believer that your Seahawks are a good team that
Well,
they
listen,
can.
it's this Detroit team, and listen, the San Francisco. I'll make a different pick, obviously, because I will not be picking Seattle against San Francisco. Just saying that. Sorry, guys, but I will say that against Detroit team, Seattle does have opportunities and can beat them without a doubt, and no problem, no issues.
Okay.
And now, time for
Wow.
some random points.
Okay, and of course that's sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut, and we certainly thank them for their loyal sponsorship throughout the start to finish of our show. And there's no finish in sight. So thank you, Mike. Um, yeah, I got a couple things. And I thought I read this incorrectly because Sidney Crosby was one of the best all-time players in the
Yep.
NHL. He's starting to get up there in age. It's hard to believe that Sid the Kid, who came up when he was 18 years old, is now in his late 30s.
Can you
And I
believe it?
thought I read that they signed him to a 2-year, $8 million contract. And then I was corrected because I said, wait a minute. I mean, that's all he's getting is $4 million a year, but it in fact was 2 years, $8 million per year. So he's going to go down in the record books as one of the greatest. I know a lot of people don't like him; they call him a whiner and this and that, but he's gritty and he's just a great player. I'm glad he got um,
That's awesome. Yeah,
a
a
new
very good
contract.
contract, well deserved.
Yep, I got another one, and this was to me a little bit interesting. It was Brett Favre appears in front of Congress talking about um, a topic where he's been accused of taking money from it's called the TANF, right? Oh God, and I keep forgetting what the acronym is. It's money for needy families, and he took this and then he used that as an opportunity to try to get some sympathy by saying now he's dealing with Parkinson's disease, and a lot of people are going to say, well, is this related to sports? And he says I've had over 1,000 concussions. I don't know, and I know people that have had Parkinson's, and we saw the effects of Parkinson's on Muhammad Ali. Yeah, when you rattle the brain that often, but you know what? He still doesn't get a pass from me because there's so much that points at him
Absolutely.
um, for the assistance for those needy families that he took to build an arena for his daughter, and I think was it Mississippi State or whatever it
Yeah.
was for the volleyball team. So he doesn't get a free pass from me.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, and let's talk something about. Of course, we've been watching very closely, right, with Shohei Otani, right, the first 50-50
Yep.
guy, but he hits that ball, and the ball now gets retrieved by some 18-year-old guy, and then some other guy muscles him and takes the ball away like he has possession of that ball, and now that ball is going up for auction, and it could fetch millions of dollars. I feel bad for that 18-year-old kid that had that ball, and he's filing an injunction to get it back. But you know, that's a shame. I mean, you go to the
There's
games, you
security.
see this stuff, and now because it's such a monumental souvenir going forward, and they want it in the Hall of Fame. they should compensate the kid that had it, not auction it off. I wish Major League Baseball and Manfred would do something about that. I think that was just not a good look. It really wasn't a good
Wow,
look.
that's horrible.
All right, Eli, give us one other quick thing. And this
Yeah.
was brought up by one of our loyal listeners, Eric, about the NFL. And I didn't realize that it's a little bit more prevalent in the other sports, baseball, the NBA, and the NHL. But private equity companies now are going to be investing in NFL teams. And what that means now they're going to have the funds to support the building of new stadiums, enhanced facilities, do all that. So, base football is now more than just the business. So it's not the one billionaire owner that owns the team makes the decisions. Now you're going to have private equity companies being part of the financial picture, and that's a big deal in the NFL.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Let me get to some random points. We'll start off with the WNBA as it's down to its final four. Now it's the best of 5 games to win it all. Sunday's game saw Las Vegas versus New York, 3 p.m. ABC. That's coming up. And Connecticut, Minnesota, 8:30 p.m. on ESPN. Those are your final 4 teams. Eliminated Indiana, Phoenix, Atlanta, Seattle. The end of Caitlin Clark's year has come to a close. But let's look back on
Yeah.
her career. So far, she set the NCAA scoring record this season. Number 1 overall draft pick in the WNBA. Rookie of the year in WNBA first team. Signed a $28 million Nike deal. And plus, drew millions of fans to women's sports, both in the NCAA and WNBA. So you cannot argue that was one of the best years Caitlin Clark has had and just changed the tone for the WNBA.
Oh, no doubt. It put the WNBA on the map. I mean, no question about it.
Absolutely.
Nobody can deny this. This league has been in existence for a while, and they've never had the viewership. They've never had the attendance. But yes, there's super talent across Asia Wilson and so forth.
Yes, you
But
just unanimously won MVP, AJ Wilson. And the last person to ever do so was Cynthia Cooper Dyke, who was on the Houston Comets. That was used to be a team.
yep,
That was the last
yep.
person that ever did it. Meanwhile, the Chicago Sky have fired Teresa Witherspoon less than a year following her hire from the team. A bold move. And a lot of people are sending their sorries to her because that was a big move by the organization.
Yeah, she's kind of considered a legend in women's basketball. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yep.
Big trade over the night. The Knicks and Timberwolves worked on a trade to get Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo for Karl Anthony Towns. What a big move that was. And
Yeah.
Jim, I know you followed the Knicks a lot, and can you tell us about what this means, really?
Well, it's an interesting dynamic that now Julius Randle is not going to be part of the Knicks, so the Knicks have basically revamped their team. Right now, they have Jalen Brunson, but you got to wonder. Karl Anthony Towns, he was a great player. I don't know if he's still a great player. And DiVincenzo was very popular in Madison Square Garden, but I will give the Knicks credit. I mean, they are making moves and cutting ties with Julius Randle after they paid him a ton of money 2 years ago, but he missed a lot of the season last year, missed the postseason for injuries. So it's probably a pretty good move for the Knicks. And it only remains to be seen whether Karl Anthony Towns is the same player he was for the past, 10 years in Minnesota.
All right. Meanwhile, Derrick Rose has announced his retirement from the NBA after 15 seasons, he announced the other day.
Yeah, I found that to be funny. Like, where has he been the past 5 years? He hasn't. I don't know if he's even played 5 minutes in the league, right?
I 100% agree.
Yeah, it was kind of strange. Like, I thought he was retired 5 years ago, but okay.
3 other notes: ESPN has fired NBA reporter Zach Lowe, part of their ESPN layoff. So even though Woj left, they're still firing other people.
Yeah, we talked about Woj, last week.
Yeah. Meanwhile, MetLife Stadium will host WWE 2025 SummerSlam on August 2nd and 3rd. Hopefully, it's not as bad as WrestleMania was a few years ago, where New Jersey Transit and traffic was not the best winner for the day. We'll watch out for that to see how it goes.
That's an old story with having anything at MetLife Stadium. Getting there, getting out. Yeah.
Finally, the last news: Hoda Kotb from the Today Show on NBC announced that she'll be leaving after 5 seasons early next year to spend more time with her family. great anchor on the Today Show, and she's obviously always there for the Thanksgiving parade and everything.
Yeah.
Let's go. Congratulations to her, and what a good career she had.
Oh, she'll be around. She'll be
She'll
hanging
be around, but
around.
not like not
Yeah.
permanently every day behind the desk for the Today Show.
No, I got no problem with her. I got no problem with her.
Yeah, she was always a good wanker. And that's it.
Yep.
We'll get to our entertainment and photo segment sponsored by Vital Selections. Don't forget to scan this QR code right now so you can learn more about Vital Selections.
Yep. Taking your health seriously is very, very important, and Vital Selections is a good place to start. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, Eli, with entertainment, we got an email from one of our loyal listeners who brought up a really good movie, and I don't think I brought it up before. Was Cinderella Man with Russell Crowe,
Okay.
about the story about James Braddock and his rise to glory in the boxing world, and it is indeed a great movie. One of the best two movies with Russell Crowe that I can remember. And the other one I was going to bring up before I got that email this morning was L.A. Confidential. And I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a great, great movie with Russell Crowe.
Okay.
And it's, Danny DeVito's in it. It's just one of those Hollywood movies about the 50s and 60s and, just how crazy it was. It's really an outstanding movie, and I highly recommend it. So that's a Russell Crowe movie, like I said, as well. Maybe Gladiator he was pretty good into.
All right. Well, here's my recommend. To have two recommendations for the week. First off, tonight is the season premiere of Saturday Night Live. That's 50th season. So if you're up at 11:30 tonight, I will not be. Watch highlights the next day. Watch Saturday Night Live. Host Gene Smart and musical guest Jelly Roll to kick off its 50th season. They'll be having primetime specials in February. So watch Saturday Night Live if you're up.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that it's been 50 years for Saturday
Since
Night
that show
Live.
premiered.
I still think it's great.
It's still a great show. They
Yeah.
nail it every time. And the one other recommendation is in honor of one of the notable passings. Watch something Harry Potter in honor of our notable passing, which we will mention in just a little bit. But watch something Harry Potter. That's the thing.
Okay.
I never watched Harry Potter.
I
I saw the Broadway. The Broadway has been fantastic, by the way. You have to see the Broadway. I saw the Broadway. That was phenomenal. You have to see the Broadway if you have not already.
I'm sure it was a great production. I got to be honest, though, I haven't seen 1 minute of any of the Harry Potter series.
I have not either. I watched maybe like 10 minutes of Harry Potter and watched the Broadway, but the Broadway was phenomenal, though. You cannot argue that was one of the fantastic productions they've ever put up on Broadway.
Okay, good. All right, so I do have a picture that I wanted to put up, and in the middle of that is one of our loyal listeners, Jay Costello, happened to be my college roommate. So there he is in the background. That's the Saratoga battlefield up in Saratoga, and there was a reenactment going on. So Jay's out biking, and it's one of the most beautiful places to ride a bicycle you could possibly imagine. I'm not a biker, but biking is a sport, and then Jay's got all the equipment, the shirts and everything, and that's just a cool picture because I'm a history guy, and I've been to hundreds and hundreds of reenactments, and I just wanted to give that shout out to Jay because that's a great, great picture he sent me.
That is awesome. Gotta love it.
Great.
And now time for some notable passings.
Yes, and we got a few here, and first and foremost, in no particular order, but a couple of them are pretty personal to me. But from the NFL, Mercury Morris, who was one of the great running backs for the Dolphins in their undefeated championship series back in ‑72. Notably, it was Larry Zonka, Mercury Morris, and Jim Kick, one of the best three-person backfields in the history of the NFL, and he was 77. And he had some personal problems and went to jail and was ultimately exonerated on some of those drug charges. But he put his problems to good use. He was addicted to drugs, and then he went out and became a spokesperson to help the inner community. So you got to love that. And a couple other ones, like I said, you brought up Harry Potter, and the reason you brought it up was because Maggie Smith, who was one of the great actresses of all time, was in the Harry Potter series. She won an
Professor
Oscar
McGonagall.
for the prime of Miss Jane Brodie back in the 60s, and also won a Best Supporting Actress role for her role in California Suite, a Neil Simon show. But she was 89 years old, a
Yeah, she was.
well-known actress, and had a great career. So I got a couple other ones that are, like I said, a little personal. One was Frank Salvano, who was a longtime head baseball
He was
coach
a
at
good
St.
coach.
Joe's, my alma mater, county champion, state champion, just revered in St. Joe's lore, and that was kind of a surprise. He was didn't see that coming, but he just retired a few years back, but he certainly has a place in St. Joe's history. So he passed away. And another one that was really personal to me, somebody that I've only been friends with for a couple of years, and I met him through work, and we used to have conversations. He was just a year younger than I, Scott Ferguson, and he passed away suddenly the other day, kind of a shocker to me. We used to exchange sports books, and we talked about sports, and he knew exactly what I knew about sports, and when I brought up topics, he could respond, and he was just a wonderful gentleman, and that was a big surprise and a big loss for me when you lose somebody, especially unexpected like that. So I wanted to send out our condolences to the whole Ferguson family. That's a big loss.
Absolutely. And the one other one I had was, I'm not sure if we mentioned it last week, was Al McCoy, born in 1933. He died last week. He was 91, longtime Phoenix Suns play-by-play announcer. And we
Yeah.
do deeply send our prayers to your Jim and his family and all those who have passed away this week.
Yep. And again, we do it because we honor these people because they made an impact either personally or in the world of sports or in the world of entertainment. But some weeks, Eli, we've been
lucky.
yeah, we've been lucky where we didn't have a lot or we didn't have any. But this week, unfortunately, some of it hits home personally, and RIP. But again, it's accolades to these people, not to
Absolutely.
be downtrodden at all.
But
So,
hey, what a
Eli,
great show. And we have a show next week at 10 o'clock back at our normal time next week.
yes, and I know you got a game to go to at 1 o'clock. You're working your St. Mary's game, and
Yes,
again,
I am.
I just want to acknowledge that our loyal listener base, it's increasing, and it's been great to have you join the show. We had our 1 year anniversary in June, and now we're
Halfway
into
there
our
again.
second year, and we're picking up steam. I think people enjoy the fact that I can cover a lot of stuff from days past, and you bring a new vision to your age group, and very knowledgeable in the sports field, and I just want to thank everybody for their support. And like when we get a message or a comment from Paul Lawless, that means something to me, and it should mean something to you. And I just couldn't be more grateful. And the Jim Walshes and everybody else, the Mike Garveys, the support we're getting is growing. And I wanted to thank everybody personally. So
Absolutely. It was in a special moment as always.
yes. So we will see you guys back here next week. And
At 10
Eli,
o'clock.
yeah, I don't know what's the Thursday game this week?
Thursday this week will be Atlanta Saints.
Yeah, it's not a game I'm interested in, but
No.
yeah, well, we may have to just start because they play on almost every day of the week now, so we'll see what that
Brings
to
us.
like, and right. So thanks, Eli. Enjoy your game.
Right.
Good luck to you, St. Mary's Gales, and like I said, thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you here next week at 10.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.